I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. I want to expose right now the right-wing propaganda machine and how it operates. Let's look at the anatomy of it, shall we? Let's focus on a story that they were pushing on Tuesday, but basically every day of the week they drop one of these stories. So on Tuesday, an organization called America First Legal, sounds like an official legal organization, right? They put out this story. They also put out this public records request, which they sent to the National Archives, and this thread on social media on Twitter that said the following thread: records obtained from our investigation into the circumstances surrounding the Mar-a-Lago raid further confirms that the FBI obtained access to these requests through a special access request from the Biden White House on behalf of the DOJ. So the first thing we should look at is, who is this organization, America First Legal? Who's behind it? All right, look who's behind it. This organization is basically a proxy for Stephen Miller, one of Donald Trump's closest aides during the Trump administration, one of Donald Trump's closest supporters right now. Stephen Miller had promulgated some of the most hateful and despicable policies in the Trump administration, basically complete and utter disinformation that he would spread during the Trump administration. So America First Legal is basically Stephen Miller. Who sits on the board of America First Legal? None other than Mark Meadows. I plead the fifth. Mark Meadows sits on the board. So it's just a Trump proxy organization. And by the way, Stephen Miller, not a lawyer. Mark Meadows is not a lawyer. So an organization of non-lawyers who are calling themselves America First Legal. And then when you actually go into the letter, so what's the letter trying to do? The letter is trying to basically justify that Donald Trump should steal thousands of government records, that Donald Trump's allowed to obstruct justice. So just from the very outset, the very essence of this story is basically a misdirection, because look, Donald Trump, regardless of the circumstances, engaged in criminal conduct. For over 18 months, Donald Trump was given the opportunity to return records, which he stole. It's an undisputed fact that he stole, that he brought to Mar-a-Lago thousands of records, including top secret information, sensitive compartmented information, other classified records. And he would lie. He would say, oh, we've turned everything over. I don't have anything. Then you go to, January of 2022, and then Trump said, okay, I got these 15 boxes. I've got nothing else. This is everything. Here we have some newspaper clippings. And then the National Archives looked inside the newspaper clippings and said, holy crap, there's classified information in there. You're putting in these newspaper clippings like you're hiding it. Sensitive compartmented information that's so highly classified that they need to be reviewed in sensitive compartmented information facilities, or SCIFs. So the National Archives has to turn it over to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice then takes over the investigation. The Department of Justice asks for the records back. Trump refuses. Trump's lawyers say, no worry, you have everything. So the Department of Justice finally has to get a subpoena from a grand jury in May of 2022. They subpoena Donald Trump. Donald Trump has his lawyers sign a false attestation on June 3rd of 2022, where they return a small red-weld folder, including 30 plus other classified records. And they sign an attestation. You have Christina Bobb and Evan Corcoran. Trump's lawyers say, we've got nothing else. The Department of Justice knows that Trump's lying. So then finally, after 18 months of Trump's repeated lies, including a false attestation given to the top counterintelligence official of the Department of Justice, the Department of Justice has to get a search warrant. They get a search warrant. They execute the search warrant. A magistrate judge, Judge Reinhart, finds probable cause on August 5th. The search warrant's executed on August 8th. And lo and behold, there's thousands of government records, including 100 other top secret and other classified information, including sensitive compartmented information. Not to mention, there are dozens of other folders that say classified on it where the contents are missing. Okay, that's a crime. That's obstruction of justice. So setting aside the very content of the letter, the whole thing, the whole propaganda in and of itself is a misdirection to basically say, oh, this was politically motivated. Don't even look at the crime. But when you actually get into, okay, well, what is this letter even saying? What is the underlying argument that's being made in this letter? Well, the underlying argument is that the Department of Justice authorized a criminal investigation and that the Department of Justice executed a search warrant, and they call it the Biden Department of Justice. Look, the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch. Of course, the Department of Justice executed a search warrant, but in normal course, the way the Department of Justice is supposed to be structured, which it wasn't under the Trump administration, which it was in the Biden administration, is there's supposed to be a separation, though, between the president and what the Department of Justice is pursuing. There's supposed to be a level of independence there, and that's what takes place under the Biden administration. That's why you don't have Biden tweeting out or posting or directing Merrick Garland do this or do that, which Donald Trump absolutely did on a daily basis with Bill Barr. And so you just look at this letter that was being sent by this America First legal group, and like, what are the things that they're talking about? Well, they're like citing this letter from the National Archives, where the National Archives says that the National Archives identified items marked as classified national security information within the 15 boxes. And then NARA referred the issue to the Department of Justice. Since that time, the Department of Justice has been exclusively responsible for all aspects of the investigation, and NARA has not been involved in the DOJ investigation or any searches that it has conducted. Accordingly, NARA is unable to provide a briefing or any documents in response to your letter, and we refer you to the Department of Justice. Please note, however, NARA is preserving all records relating to this matter. Yes, and that dovetails directly with the timeline that NARA was involved at first in the process when Trump left the White House in January of 2021. NARA said, "Can we get these documents back?" And when finally, after NARA persisted, and Trump continued to lie, then it was turned over to the Department of Justice. And then the Department of Justice was exclusively engaged in the investigation. Like, that's not a bombshell moment right there at all. And we know Donald Trump committed the crime. So that's the story that they want to launder. So they basically create this organization that they call American First Legal. It's not a legal organization, but they give it the title. It's run by Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller then invents this story to back up a Trump conspiracy theory. And then the next step that they do is then Stephen Miller coordinates this kind of phony organization that's really a Trump proxy group. Then what do? They coordinate with the GOP and the House Judiciary or the House Oversight Committee. And then Jim Jordan and the House Judiciary tweets out the propaganda. They spread it. So then you have the House Judiciary account. They go, "Wow, look at this story. Wow," they write. And then you have Trump's kids like Eric Trump go, I called it the morning of the Mar-a-Lago raid. Biden knew everything. And there's absolutely no evidence that Biden knew anything, yet alone everything from any of their letters or any of the evidence that they use in, purportedly in support of it. So then here's the step, right? Stephen Miller's organization, America First Legal, comes up with this conspiracy, which in and of itself is kind of an irrelevant misdirection, but it's a misdirection. House Judiciary, they post it. Trump's kids, they post it. Then the former Trump aides, who are these MAGA influencers and these far-right disinformation blogs, they then tweet out the phony story. And the MAGA Republican disinformation machine kicks into action, which is a very coordinated and organized effort where they basically repeat the same message over and over again. So here you have Jenna Ellis, Biden White House directly coordinated with the FBI to set up the Trump raid, as though they think that people don't know, and maybe their supporters don't know, the FBI is a division, is a department within the Department of Justice. So of course the Department of Justice is directing the efforts of the FBI. And if you want to call it the Biden Department of Justice, yes, Yes, Biden appoints the attorney general, and the top officials at the Department of Justice are appointed by the Biden administration. That's the way the Department of Justice works and operated. Then you have Dinesh D'Souza, who goes, breaking bombshell report shows Biden White House involved with Trump Mar-a-Lago raid. And now notice what they do. They then take the report, they kind of remove the identity that it's a Stephen Miller organization, and they just put it out there, bombshell report. Then Lauren Boebert posts it. And what are they posting? Breitbart, DC Inquirer, all these right-wing papers and websites, they then write about it. Then Lauren Boebert goes, there was never any doubt about this. It was only a matter of time until we found out. The Biden crime family never quits with their corruption. Find out what? There's nothing in that letter that says Biden knew or directed or did anything at all. You're just describing the way the DOJ is structured. Here's the Gateway Pundit. America First Legal. Biden White House was involved in Mar-a-Lago raid, leading political opponent President Trump. So it is a very sophisticated operation of how this disinformation is pushed. And then what happens? Then Fox picks it up. So then it's laundered through Fox and the Murdoch properties like the New York Post, and they cite the report to give them legal cover. And the report came from Trump propagandist Stephen Miller. And this is repeated over and over again. Here's the Fox headline. Biden White House officials were involved in Mar-a-Lago raid despite claiming otherwise. Report. And so they're saying that the DOJ officials who are appointed by the Biden administrations, that they knew about the raid. Well, that's the way the Department of Justice works. The Department of Justice has their attorney general is appointed by Biden. The FBI is under the Department of Justice. There's absolutely zero evidence that Biden knew, that Biden directed. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. And that is how the disinformation spreads. And then you want to look at some of the other disinformation that they spread. Just here's another example of them basically doing the same thing. So here's America First Legal breaking. America First Legal has opened an investigation into the New York County District Attorney's Office to obtain their internal and external communications. Boom. What happens? House Judiciary GOP, they put out some eyeball emojis. They spread it. And the cycle repeats over and over again. And America First Legal, not a legal organization, not run by a lawyer, run by Stephen Miller, a Trump cultist, a Trump cult member, a Trump aide. That's who is peddling this disinformation, but it is all astroturf. It is all meant to create this view that, hey, this is an official report that was created. You see, MAGA Republicans, look at this report. This was Biden directing this action when there's no such evidence in there at all. And they want to deflect from the fact that, notice, they don't say Trump is innocent. They don't say Trump didn't do it. They go, oh, purportedly, but no, it was no purportedly. Donald Trump stole the most sensitive records from our country, posing a immediate threat to our national security, defied subpoenas, obstructed justice repeatedly, and then they funnel and launder this ridiculous disinformation campaign. But notice how it's coordinated. Notice the structure so that you could be able to call it out and recognize it. And you can let people know, no, America First Legal, that's Stephen Miller. That's Stephen. It's not a report. It's Stephen Miller just spreading disinformation out there. That's how it works, folks. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We are on our way to 1.5 million subscribers thanks to your support. So please hit the subscribe button. Also, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I think you will love what we got on our Patreon site. Some great memberships there. You can join. It helps grow this platform. And we just did a live Zoom session on our Patreon. Also, you can check us out as well wherever you get your audio podcast. Subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas. Thanks for watching.
The best part of waking up? MAGA tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA tears mug available now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com. It's 100% union made right here in the USA. I know I'm not tired of winning yet. How about you? Get yours today.